Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to Newstos. Nintendo dropped a new Indie World showcase today where they revealed a ton of new games, several of which look like a lot of fun. There was some pretty cool surprises here, including a sequel, and even an old Konami franchise is set to return. Yeah, we don't really get to talk about Konami too much anymore, but I have to say, what they showed today does look impressive, so we'll talk about the Indie World showcase later on in the video. Also, the highly praised first-party PlayStation studio, Naughty Dog, talked a lot about development and how they approach things as a studio. And while that's not necessarily newsworthy all on its own, they did talk about Jak and Daxter and their struggles with working on multiple games at the same time. It does sound like they have multiple projects in the works, but there's some caveats to that, and we'll discuss that as well here in just a bit. With that said, let's get right into the news, starting off with Immortals Fenyx Rising. So I actually believe Immortals Fenyx Rising is one of the best games that you can pick up for the PS5 or the Xbox Series right now. I mean, it's still very early in the generation, and you can pick it up on the Xbox One, PS4, and Switch as well, but this is a really good game that deserves more attention than what it's been getting. I haven't seen a lot of buzz about this game online, but every time I hear somebody talk about it, they do seem to like it, and I have to say, it is a gem of a game. This is a brand new IP built from the Assassin's Creed Odyssey team, but it's completely its own thing. You can definitely see some inspiration from Zelda Breath of the Wild, though the creators say they got inspiration from games like Banjo-Kazooie. It is a witty game for sure, but they are currently working on DLC for Fenyx Rising, and they talked about how they can now expand on the universe with new gods, new stories, new locations, and new mythology. What was most interesting, however, is that it sounds like they're hopeful for Immortals to turn into its own franchise. Obviously, that all depends on Immortals Fenyx Rising's long-term success, but I would love to see them do more with Immortals going forward. It's a lighthearted game with an enjoyable story and surprisingly fun combat, with some fun puzzles and dungeons along the way. I mean, they could expand on these ideas and make them even better in the future. We have plenty of big budget games out there that are realistic and gritty, but this is just a little different. It's such a charming game, and really, if you haven't played Immortals Fenyx Rising, I do highly encourage you to go out and play it. If you have though, and if you liked it, who knows, maybe we can get a sequel in the future. I'm definitely rooting for that myself. Moving on, let's talk about an upcoming Xbox game real quick. It's still almost hard to believe this is a real thing, but somehow Xbox partnered up with Sega to bring over the popular MMO Phantasy Star Online 2 to the West. Fans have been wanting a Western release for years, and it's finally happened thanks to the Xbox-Sega partnership. Well, a big expansion, New Genesis, is set to release that is reinventing Phantasy Star Online 2. Now this looks like a massive expansion, and it just looks so much better all around than what it originally did. I was watching Maximilian Dude play this game on YouTube, and the way he explains it is, it feels like Phantasy Star Online 3. Yeah, go watch him play it, as he's always entertaining and an absolute joy. Nonetheless, I do think this is an exciting release, not just for PSO fans, but also newcomers as well. I do think New Genesis will draw in a lot of new people, but if this is a game that you just can't wait for, I got some good news. Sega is pushing out a global closed beta that will take place from May 14th to the 16th. Now, unfortunately, the beta will only be available on Windows 10, so you won't be able to play this on your Xbox, but if this is something you're interested in, go register for the closed beta when signups go live. Next up, we have a new upcoming event to talk about, though this might not be one that you were expecting. Yeah, this will be the first ever Oculus gaming showcase. For virtual reality fans interested, this showcase will take place on April 21st, where they highlight new Oculus games. Now, they have confirmed a few games that will be there, which includes Pistol Whip, Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy Edge, and Lone Echo 2. And that right there is the one that you really need to be paying attention to. The original Lone Echo is still probably one of the best VR titles to release on any device thus far. I know Oculus takes some heat because they're owned by Facebook, and they're kind of forcing Facebook on their user base, but Oculus does publish some really good games, Lone Echo included. I myself own an Oculus Rift S and a Quest 2, both of which are great VR headsets. Well, Oculus did acquire the Lone Echo studio Ready at Dawn, which some of you might know for working on the PS4 exclusive The Order 1886, and they're set to make a big AAA sequel for Lone Echo. I think for this reason alone, it's worth tuning in for this event on April 21st. Another game that they might talk about is the second part of Jurassic World Aftermath. They released the first part earlier this year, so we're still waiting for that second part, and I would expect some kind of update on that here at this event. We'll see what happens though, but I will keep you updated on this event when it officially happens next week. In other news, let's talk about that Nintendo Indie World Showcase. They revealed a ton of new games here, and if I counted this correctly, they showed 22 games. Yeah, that's a lot of games. Now, I'm not going to talk about all 22 games as that would take far too long, but I will highlight some of the standouts. Unfortunately, Hollow Knight Silksong wasn't there yet again, but there was some really good games here. They showed a new trailer for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, and this game truly does look excellent. I really enjoyed what .mu did with Streets of Rage 4 last year, and it seems like they're going to do that yet again with Shredder's Revenge. It's very faithful to the original with a modern twist, and it's definitely a game I'm excited for. We still unfortunately don't have an exact release date, but based off this trailer, it's going to be a good game for sure. Also, Chris Tells, which is another game that I've been really looking forward to, got a release date for July 20th. This is a classic inspired JRPG with a time mechanic thrown in. I absolutely adore the art style in this game, and I'm interested to see how the time mechanic works. In most games, it seems like those type of mechanics primarily are tied to the story, but here apparently you can use this time ability in battle. As an example, you can turn your enemies into a baby to where they're easier to fight. That's a pretty good use of these time mechanics, so you might want to keep an eye out for Chris Tells when it releases on July 20th. Also, Konami, out of all publishers, announced a new game here. Now that was a big surprise. We don't exactly hear about them very often anymore, but they're bringing back Getsu Fumiden. Now, if you haven't heard about this game before, don't feel bad because I haven't either. Apparently, the original released way back in 1987, and you will have access to the original if you get Getsu Fumiden Undying Moon in Steam Early Access. Yeah, even though this game releases in 2022, you can get it via Steam Early Access on May 13th. Honestly, I might do that myself. I think this game looks like a lot of fun, and I really dig the 2D traditional Japanese art style. Another game that I thought looked really good was Skull the Hero Slayer. Now this is another 2D roguelike, but instead of playing the hero, you play as the villain. That's quite the twist, though the gameplay itself is what I like. See, in Skull you have access to a lot of different abilities by swapping heads. I mean, you are a skeleton, so you can do that type of thing, but I like this idea. The good news here is that this one does release sometime this summer, so it's right around the corner. The big surprise, however, was right at the end, as Nintendo often does with these type of directs. Oxenfree will be getting a sequel. I was not expecting that, but there are a lot of people who like the first game, and Night School Studio is very talented. They excel when it comes to these point-and-click adventure type of games. They have good mysterious stories with fun characters and settings. I mean, the original Oxenfree definitely proved this, but they also have other games like After Party. So this is a proven independent studio, and the sequel for Oxenfree will release sometime in 2021. Other than that though, there was still a lot of other games here, including Fez, Art of Rally, a remake of House of Dead, which was another delightful surprise, Ollie Ollie World, Aztec Forgotten Gods, and yeah, it was just a good overall event. There was a lot of variety here, and I enjoyed what I saw. As a bonus, Nintendo is holding a big indie eShop sale today, so you might want to go see what you can pick up for a discounted price. Let me know in the comments below though on what games excited you the most at this Indie World Showcase. Next up, we got some PlayStation news to go over. Naughty Dog's Evan Wells on Ted Price's AIAS podcast talked a lot about Naughty Dog and how they develop games, and some of the things they've ran into in the past. And obviously a big part of Naughty Dog's past was Jak and Daxter, and to this day I still see a lot of people want a new Jak and Daxter. We haven't really seen much from this franchise since the PS2 days, and it really seems like Naughty Dog has just kinda moved on. Well, that once again seems to be the case, with Evan Wells confirming that Jak and Daxter is not in development. He did say he wished that wasn't the case when he sees something like Ratchet & Clank, but it's not happening as of this moment. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second, but I know for you Jak and Daxter fans out there, this is a little disappointing. I myself would like to see a new Jak and Daxter. I really believe there was something charming about the PS2 and its first-party 3D platformers. You of course had Ratchet & Clank, Sly Cooper, and then Jak and Daxter. The only one that still seems to be active is Ratchet & Clank, with both Sucker Punch and Naughty Dog moving on to new franchises. And really, that's worked out great for these studios, as Uncharted, The Last of Us, and Ghost of Tsushima has been massive hits. Now, maybe Sony can license out something like Jak and Daxter to a third-party studio, and I would be up for that as well. They have done that with Little Big Planet and Sumo Digital. So, I mean, you never know. Maybe a new studio with Naughty Dog overseeing it could possibly work out. Interestingly enough though, apparently a new Jak and Daxter was in development right before Naughty Dog decided to work on The Last of Us instead. I guess Neil Druckmann worked on Jak for about 4 months until they canceled it and then decided to do The Last of Us instead. That is really interesting, but yeah, Jak 4 is just not on the cards as of this moment, according to Evan Wells. What is Naughty Dog working on next though? Well, he did mention that Naughty Dog has kind of struggled with working on multiple projects at the same time. Now, they do have multiple projects in the works, some of which are in pre-production, but it seems that their main focus seems to be on one project. And that right there is the thing. We kind of know about 3 projects from Naughty Dog already. They are working on a new multiplayer game, which is kind of like a follow-up to Factions from the original The Last of Us. We also know from last week's report that they are working on a remake of The Last of Us. I'm still not exactly sold on that idea. And then also they were working on a new Uncharted game with Sony Bend. That right there is the one that I'm really hyped up about because I am a huge fan of Uncharted, but the thing about that project is that Sony Bend wanted to work on their own IP, and Sony did grant that last month. Because of that, Jason Schreier is not 100% sure if the Uncharted project is still in development. Sony Bend was the studio behind Uncharted Golden Abyss, which was a great game for the PlayStation Vita. Vastly underrated in my opinion, but they might have been the lead on a new Uncharted project with the help of Naughty Dog. So there's really no guarantee that a new Uncharted is still in development. I seriously hope it is though. I need a new Uncharted, but my guess is that Naughty Dog's main focus right now is that multiplayer game. That will be the next game that we more than likely hear about from Naughty Dog. Again though, I really hope a new Uncharted is in development still. Let me know though, what would you like to see them do next? Would you rather a new Uncharted, The Last of Us, or a completely new IP? Naughty Dog does tend to move on to new franchises to work on, and Evan Wells even mentioned that in this interview, so there is a good chance that we get another new IP from Naughty Dog this generation, and I'm okay with that as well. Naughty Dog is a very talented team, so I do trust them to make another new game, whether that's new IP or something in an existing franchise. With that said, let's take a look at the poll of the day. Earlier this week, David Jaffe had mentioned that PlayStation is working on some kind of Xbox Game Pass competitor. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan has even alluded to that in the past, and it got me thinking, what could they do with their first-party IP to entice more subscribers? So I asked you all if you would subscribe to PlayStation Now if they brought their first-party games to PlayStation Now 6 months after release, and only 20% of you said yes. It seems like you all are not quite sold on this particular idea. You all want those day one releases, though I just don't know if Sony would be willing to do that. In the past, it seemed like they were against this idea. Now, I think maybe they might try 6 to 12 months, and that probably would bring in a lot of new subscribers. Now, it probably wouldn't be near as much as Xbox Game Pass having day one releases for their 23 studios, but Xbox Game Pass is really spoiling their fans, and I still think this would be a nice inclusion for PlayStation Now, even if it's 6 months after release, or at least in my opinion. Anyways though, that's it for this video, but don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.